Anything else? Hopefully we'll have some stragglers, but we need to get started. If we could have call to order for the Trumbull County Water Advisory Committee. Bob McBride.
Here.
Ken Tucker. James Suttles. Dr. James Lapola. Monica Baker.
Here.
Kevin Stanley. Charlie Hagman.
Here.
Phil Pegg.
Here.
Ryan Yoho. Richard Harkins.
Here.
And we have four here. So we can stand.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next board, we have items to address. You need to bear with us. He sent out the minutes of September 25th, 2025 for your review. I need a motion to approve the Water Advisory Board's minutes of September 25th, 2025.
So.
Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor? Aye. Against? Motion passes. Okay. On behalf of the Trumbull County Water Advisory Board, I'd like to thank all in attendance that took the time out of their busy schedule to make this meeting. Also, I'd like to thank the Champion Township Board of Trustees for allowing the use of the administration building for tonight's meeting. Our advisory board believes that now is the time to build a responsible policy conversation about regional solutions and what the water sector and government can do to facilitate local collaborations. We fully realize the strong desire to maintain local control remains a significant barrier. With that, negotiation is a discussion between parties who have opposite goals. That should end with neither side being happy. This is all that we can. I ask that through the course of this meeting, you listen to understand, not just to reply. Regarding the first three presenters, I ask that you listen respectively and without interruption. The roundtable discussion, not lasting more than 1 hour, will follow the presenters. Entering into discussion, representatives of bulk water providers, Youngstown, Ohio, and Woodring, if present, first have, should they wish to comment. And I also ask that when you do comment, please state your name and who you represent, secretaries of head. So, first, Matt Blair.
Well, on the agenda, you'll see that I have been asked to talk about Ohio Revised Code 6119, which is a statute which allows a community to initiate a regional water district. But before I do that, I think I should tell you that we already have a regional water district at the MVSD, which is MVSD stands for the Mahoning Valley Sanitary District. This was a district formed by Now's Youngstown and the village of McDonald. The MVSD dates back to, I think, the early 1950s. What we have there is used to be a two-man board. Back in 1998, it was expanded to a four-man board. There are two representatives from the city of Now's and two representatives from the city of Youngstown. And I want to use this as an illustration because this is very similar to what you do with the 6119 as well. But with the city of Youngstown, the city of Now's, the mayor of each city selects one of the directors, and the council from each city, which selects a director. And that board then runs the Mahoney Valley Sanitary District. Now, what happens is that the cities of Niles and the city of Youngstown, then they sell surplus water, which are most of the customers here that we're talking about today. They sell surplus water to Mahoney and Trumbull County. And in Mahoney County, Youngstown is very active in the distribution lines, but here in Trumbull County, Niles does not have as many distribution lines. They sell primarily to Trumbull County. And I really got to tell you though, if you look at the water rates here that they're charged by Niles and Youngstown, they are very competitive water rates as you know, if you look at other areas in the state. The problem we have primarily in Trumbull County, because I really can't address too much in Mahoney County, is that in Trumbull County, what we have is the city of Niles will sell the water to a community. Let's say they sell it to the county, they sell it to Gerard, and then in some cases, that community will resell the water and mark it up again. So you can have like water that starts out, the MDSD is charging $2.11 for 1,000 gallons of water. But once it reaches Liberty, it's up to $21.12. That's what the Liberty residents are paying for 1,000 gallons of water. So that's kind of part of the problem, is that it's where you live, it's going to dictate what you pay for water. Our NOWS contracts for the county, I negotiated the contracts. I don't have a lot of issues with those contracts. I know we also, the county, Trumbull County buys water from the city of Youngstown and the city of Warren. We have representatives from Youngstown and Warren. But you know, when we start talking about these regional systems, I know a lot of people think, well, we're going to take the water away from Niles, we're going to take the water away from Youngstown. That's not what a 6119 would do in any case. What you do is you form a regional water district. It would be the communities that are being served by Youngstown and Niles and the city of Warren. And then that district would then attempt to negotiate water prices to get the best price from whatever water provider they chose to select. You would go to all the water providers and try to get the best water price. You know, it's 6119 is a process. I can tell you, regionalization process has already been taking place in the Toledo area. The Northwest Water District is a 6119 district. The Columbus area has regionalized their water, and it's kind of what we're looking at, I guess, as you go forward. There's a lot of communities looking at regionalization, not just for water, but also for sewer. They look at regionalizing sewer distribution as well. But you know, it's one of those things it doesn't start till it gets started. Back in the day when Niles and Youngstown, they had a need for drinking water. Donald Steele was pumping and making a lot of steel over there, and they needed water. So those communities got together and they formed the Meander Reservoir. They put up a dam, and that's how they did that. And in Warren, they worked with the Army Corps of Engineers, and again they constructed a dam and created the Mosquito Creek Reservoir, and that's they sell their water as well. But you know, it's one of these deals where if you really want to try to get some equity in the way the price of water, this regionalization concept is what other communities have used. Now, you would have to do a regional water study, and that would have to be something that they would recommend after the regional water study, that you think that regional water district would be helpful. Okay, but that's a long way down the road. I can tell you in Toledo, it was almost, I was just sitting there looking at it. They started it in 1997 and they finalized it in 2018. So that kind of gives you an idea. It was a long process. I don't think it has to be that long. Other communities have done it a lot quicker, but if you're looking at getting the same water prices in Liberty as you are in Trumbull County or Weathersfield Township, wherever you want to go, this regional water district would probably be the way to go. I know Harry Johnson's down here from Youngstown. Harry? Did I describe the envious problem?
Yeah, I heard it myself representing the city of Youngstown. The city, Matt and I served on about city for about 80 years together.
Yeah, I believe so.
Approximately. So I'm here because obviously we got about the meeting. I've been talking to the mayor to be here to see what the dialogue's about, and since we have to put some here, about here.
Very good. Mr. Lucarelli's here from Warren.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, Franklin relatives more. Mayor Franklin asked me to attend this meeting's event because in one first-hand knowledge of the conversation that has been transpiring and will continue, I assume, to transpire after this meeting goes forward. I do know on a state level and throughout the state of Ohio, there has been lots of talk about regionalization. Part of the issue with, one of the issues I believe with regionalization is that there are a lot of communities that want regionalization. There aren't a lot of communities that want to pay for the regionalization. Whether it's the city of Youngstown or the city of Niles or the city of Warren, that infrastructure has been paid for over the last 75 years by the citizens of Youngstown, by the citizens of Warren, and by the citizens of Niles. And but for that expense, the talk of regionalization, because there would be no source. So I think personally that one of the topics that needs to be discussed is the actual cost of regionalization, what the water providers at the beginning, whether it's Meander, MPSD, or the city of Warren, with our water source at Mosquito Lake, what has been spent historically by the citizens of those communities to even have this discussion available. So I think there needs to be a base set on where the discussion goes from.
But while I have you both here, one of the things I wanted to discuss was when you set water rates within city limits, you do rate studies, correct?
Absolutely.
And your rate studies are based on maintaining your infrastructure and that type of thing, am I correct?
Correct.
Okay, when you go outside the city limits, can we also agree that that infrastructure is not maintained by the city?
In some cases, when the city of Warren sells water, we call master meter pits, and it's sold in bulk. Yes, that is the responsibility of Trumbull County after that point. From that point forward, it is Trumbull County's responsibility. I can leave that to Gary to speak on.
And it would be true, like when now sells the water to Gerard, they're in charge of their own water distribution as well, right?
That I don't want to speak on.
We should get the same, maintain infrastructure outside of the city. For example, working Liberty, Austintown, but then we also sell involved to the city of Canton, for example. We're not responsible for maintaining that infrastructure. They maintain.
I guess what you unclear.
Borman does not maintain
No, it doesn't, I said,
Yeah,
it doesn't.
we don't, but
Cities,
like Canfield would.
yeah, right.
Yeah,
Sir, could you state your name?
I'm sorry, Jason Marie, Logan Township, ABC Water District.
Okay, part of the reason we're here tonight, or I just this idea that this is some type of adverse action, it's not. I just want to make sure everybody understands that. Nobody's trying to take anything away from anybody else. But part of the discussion is, since when water is sold outside the city, okay, currently there are places that are charging as much as 40% markups on that water that's leaving the city, surplus health. But what is the justification for that 40% markup?
Take the city of Water, sell water from Trumbull County, bulk meter pits. That bulk water rate is less than the inside city rate for the citizens of the city of Warren. And that's because it is a bulk water rate. What happens after the water is sold to Trumbull County does not fall under the purview of the city of Warren. And I'm assuming, and again, I'm not going to speak for Gary, Trumbull County has their own expenses, O&M, to maintain those lines, to install those lines, the capital cost to install those lines and the ongoing maintenance. So that's how I assume they figure out what their costs are, what they pass on to the customers in these outlying communities.
That's the, I understand that. That's what, when county buys the water, then they have to have on the information from their own rate studies as far as maintaining their. But we also have situations where, Harry, maybe you can speak to this, where the city, you're going to sell water to, house on youth. You're just putting a 40% markup on that water. I don't know if you understand that. But do you?
Yes.
Okay. Now, if you're not responsible for maintaining that infrastructure, what would be the justification for the 40% markup?
Question, we would be responsible. The areas where we are responsible, we're selling water and home. So they determine their own infrastructure rate for maintaining that system. We, of course, charge for the areas that we maintain, the areas that I just mentioned. Well, the capital, the amount of capital investment that the city would have had to invest to expand its footprint from the city of Youngstown to Austintown or the Niles. And I'm just throwing numbers out there. At the time, the city built this infrastructure, let's say the cost was $100. Well, when they expanded years long before I got there, the cost to build up the infrastructure increased. Let's say it's $200. Well, we should have to put together a rate structure to compensate for that additional expansion. Again, I wasn't around when those numbers were derived, it was long before my time. Even discussion today, if we were expanding our footprint even farther, the cost to build out that infrastructure is going to be a lot more expensive than what it was several years ago. Because obviously everything expands, prices go up, labor goes up, infrastructure can be buy, it goes up on an annual basis.
Have you been following the newspaper with Senator Corona with the legislation that he's trying to cap the 20% on, what you can upgrade your charges for surplus water?
Yeah, I was quoted the page. I said it's government. That was exactly what I said. Because what's going to happen if that bill goes through, the areas that he's attempting to, I'm assuming he's attempting to get them a rate reduction. I'm going to have to immediately turn around and just increase their rates to compensate for that reduction. And the only thing that's going to happen, I'm going to have to spread those costs over, suburbs, the surrounding areas in the city of Youngstown. So what's going to do, in fact, the city users, but if he is thinking that that is going to reduce rates, that's not going to happen. I didn't bring that information. I had my control room run some scenarios, what would happen.
Right.
But I didn't get up with all this conversation, so I didn't come prepared.
Yeah, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but just for those of you who don't know, that the city, if it's private, if they grant a private extension to an individual, and you're gonna go outside the city limits, you can only, with regard to a private extension for surplus water, you can only mark it up by 10% by statute in Ohio. So I guess the argument for this, the senator is making that if you're going to do it for an individual, you can only go to 10%. If you're going to do it for a county water system, a 20% limit seems in line. So you understand the argument?
In essence, what's going to happen is that citizens, of City of Warren, City of Youngstown, Ives, and McDonald, if that were to go through, pass it through the state legislature, get signed into law, all that is going to do is raise the rates for those cities and those municipalities. In which case, if the rates go up in the city of Youngstown and in the city of Warren and in the city of Ives, then following that, the rates are going to go up for the townships that are trying to get this law enacted. So in essence, what's going to happen is the cities of Youngstown, Warren, and Ives will be subsidizing the ability for outlying townships to receive municipal water. And we'll see how that plays out with the politics of it. And where it goes from there, but as I think Harry was trying to say, you have to think of it as like squeezing a balloon. You can squeeze a balloon, the air is just going to move from one side to the other. There's still the same costs involved, regardless of how the air is squeezed.
If I may add just a little discussion. Hypothetically, let's just say, for instance, this tactic has been used in Columbus successfully. What happened down there for annexation purposes, and this is the township issue, dates back far beyond me. City would expand their water lines out and say, hey, look, we're going to have to increase your water rates to 60% in some cases. However, if you fall into the city, you'll be a city resident, and you're going to follow the city rate. It's been used for years. And that's the bottom line. I'm not telling you anything that you haven't seen. In the case for Boardman Township, we have a 40+% surcharge from water coming from the city on parts of Boardman that get Youngstown water. We're split half Youngstown. You have office rates on. They're higher than most in the aggregate. It's a private company. They got to make money. They've got to improve their infrastructure. That's just the way it works. There's a cost of doing business, and these guys maintaining their systems have a cost, just like Trumbull County and everybody else. And what I find is it's hard to increase your rates on your residents because we all are local government. And when you have to increase those rates, people come to your meetings direct and raise hell. Why are my rates going up? And sometimes it's hard to explain that it's just the cost of maintaining, upgrading your systems with operators that are needing special licensure, repairing the lines. I know there's some places in Youngstown and about Niles that still have wooden lines, right? They're ancient. So I don't want to give anybody the illusion that there's not a true cost of operating all the systems that we have involved. There's probably a major need to increase all the rates to deal with that cost. So on one hand, I understand the ability and reason why a city would pass on the buck so they wouldn't have to hurt their own residents to outside residents, because when we don't vote in those city races, right? We don't. If I'm a township, I do. So it's easy to do. We're not raising rates.
That's fine.
Because everyone has to make smaller.
It's in the whole.
You guys provide water to different smaller systems. You sell bulk water. So the case is a little bit different. But at the same time, when you take an aggregate, everybody's water system and understand the true cost of running it, you see that these rates fluctuate because sometimes the smaller systems are more expensive. And it's hard to pass that buck on to other residents. So I understand the city's position. I also understand the township's position, saying, hey, I feel like we're the ones taking the front, but let's just cut to the chase. There's an extreme cost to operate a water system, let alone sanitary, electric. We see that, we know that. A regional stormwater and sewer and water district as proposed under 6119. Only way that works well, and the reason why it took so long to complete is because they were under basically a major stress on their water infrastructure. And they needed everybody to understand the true costs. So they did form a water district. And what happened was those costs went up for everybody. But the system that provides the drinking water for everybody that needs it is going to get the attention that it absolutely needs. So under the illusion that, oh, we just do this to be cheaper, it probably won't be. And there's a good reason for that, is because it's an expensive endeavor. Having the old system set up on the old one compared to how they need to be set up now, regulations are so stringent. And the reason I know that is because we, at the agency water district, have been working with the city of Youngstown to try and expand the water line in Keene. The regulations for hydrants, size of line, for meter agreements, we have to, at the stormwater district, try and recoup some of that money to people that want to tap into that water. This is not cheap. And it will never go back to being cheap. It's always going to have a cost. So as I look at all these rates, and I understand the city's perspective, and I understand the township's, know that the only way the 6119 forms is if they, the current owners and operators of the MDSD and the water systems, you guys have your own water systems, all want to agree and join one. It will take legal action. You will need to go in front of a judge. You will need to study. I'm very familiar with the process. We did it. And it took a lot of time. So with all what I'm saying is we can sit here and talk about the nuances of all the different water systems and the costs and why someone charges 40% and why someone charges different bulk water rate. At the end of the day, if this is something that we feel is important as a group and as communities that want to work together, we all have to want to 61. And it's going to be a process where everyone will. If you're missing a player, it's not going to go anywhere. They're already established. You're not going to relinquish that without some sort of legal battle. And I don't see how we could force it if they're not willing to be a participant. And at the same time, I know that I wouldn't want to be a township getting hit over the head with a 40% surcharge if I have to. Because we currently experience it. But I don't own the water. MDSD is established, so it's a strange agreement because I think it's the only water district in the state that has a judge presiding over it. And that's historically something that's happened before our time. And regional districts work, but it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of money, and you're going to need some good legal counsel. And if we don't have everybody cooperating, it's just.
I can build on that, going back to what we were talking about. The regional study is very important because if you look at the Toledo Water District to Columbus, they're actually paying more than you're paying in the valley. So you need to keep that in mind, okay? What you're talking about isn't going to necessarily result in cheaper water. One of the things that it normally does result in, and the reason Aqua's water is so expensive, is that they're constantly refurbing their infrastructure and replacing aging lines and that type of thing. These are the things that we should be doing as well, but we're trying to keep the prices low. So that's why, that's why you don't see that as much in the county. No, it's a process. We take everybody's involvement. Everybody would have to sign on. That's what I tried to start this thing from the beginning. Because nobody's gonna take somebody's, we can't, you're gonna township's vote to strip Warren of their water or Youngstown or Niles. It would take a community effort, everybody working together. But regionalization is the trend, I have to tell you, it's the trend. So, if you look at the one in Toledo, that was pushed by the Toledo Chamber of Commerce. And as you know, I'm with the Chamber of Commerce and we've talked about regionalization for years as well. Okay, so that is the trend, regionalization, but if the end result is lower water prices, I can't say that would be what would occur. I can.
The part that was left out was the Toledo water system was in such dire straits that something needed to be done. And in order for them to have the revenue possible for it to get done, regionalization made sense. So
It was aggressive.
Toledo did do it out of the goodness of their heart to regionalize. They did it out of some form of desperation because they were under EPA purviews and they were having issues and they had to do this.
That's true of Toledo, but if you go right next door, the Northwest Water District, that's another 6119.
They're the biggest.
Yeah, and they're actually, yeah, they're the biggest. And what they did is they formed their water district and they actually go out and choose which source, which provider they're going to purchase their water from. And they go, there's competition as to among the providers to get their contract. Okay, that's part of the problem here in Trumbull County, Mahoney County. It's kind of, you have to acknowledge, it's kind of a monopoly here as far as the water providers. There's not a lot of choices. Over in Mahoney County, you can get Aqua's involved a little bit. Trumbull County, less so. But a regional district does give you, more control, I guess, over water prices. But to form the regional water district at the end, I think you may end up with an increase in water prices, substantial in some cases. That's why you have a regional water, that's why you have a water study before you even go down.
And essentially what happened is by not having the resources, the ability to charge what it needed to charge, Rigo came to crisis. So what happens is with water districts, water systems, they are costly. It's not a process going to get cheaper, right? It's just not. It's not money, it's real. So, I mean, if there's anything I can do to help, we did form the 6119. We've been active for quite a while. We are doing a little bit of water work with the city of Youngstown's help. We appreciate that. But at the same time, this is not going to be cheap. And there's going to be money involved, time involved. I want to make sure everybody part of it. It's going to take some time. We've worked with Albers and Albers out of Columbus. They're notably a very well-respected law firm that has helped Northeastern Ohio sewer districts on multiple occasions, basically defending 6119s on the Supreme Court level. I have a lot of experience working with those folks. If anybody has any questions that wants to pick my brain at a later date, more than happy to do so.
This is a price, when I go to China, you need 2 cans of beans. I want to go to the register and pay for those 2 cans of beans, not the whole case. And case in point, just bear with me. We have a district here in Trumbull. It's $6.83. You subtract $2.11 for bulk water from MDS. That makes it balance $4.72. The inside rate of the city total is $5.25. Take out $2.11 for the bulk rate. It leaves a balance of $3.14. District, balance is $4.72. How can they warrant that? That difference, that balance. I understand, we'll pay, we have to pay our fair share. The operation and maintenance, electricity and pump stations, without water to be hopefully transmission lines out to where it's purchased in the townships. We're paying way. We're paying the operation and maintenance costs within the entire city, and that's the issue. And if somebody could explain that to people, I'll give you the phone.
Let's see you talk about
No.
it. You also looked up and you can't see that.
I just need to speak in the presence. What we're seeing. And ideally, city should only charge cost of maintaining the transmission line, whatever pump station improvements or upgrades need to be, cost associated with the amount of water pumped into the county. Any debt services associated with that transmission. But what we're seeing is the cost overage of what that cost is for the entire city distribution system. And this.
We should take note of whether to make sure you're.
Tornado watch.
Just for anybody. Guys have a shelter on site.
Talking about the table.
On the table. In the back here. I just want to know.
You got it every morning.
It looks a little.
Well, I have. These townships, are they mandated to tap into the system? Are the residents in the township, it's Champion Township, behind the township, bigger township, are they mandated by the county to tap into that water service? So they're all doing it voluntarily.
Again, we've got areas where the water is so bad, even if you run it on the system, you still can't break it.
A well system?
Not through salt. Water solutions, softeners, you still can't drink. Braceville's real bad, Farmington's real bad. Doesn't matter what you do. It's to the point where still got system in some rates. They're drinking around the water. And that's what it's kind of.
So since you mentioned Farmington, I allowed to speak West Farmington, okay? We own our own public utilities, water lines. We are all water customers of Trumbull County. We maintain our entire infrastructure ourselves. All of our distribution lines, power, everything. We maintain it all. We purchase water from Trumbull County and, it is of poor quality. We have disinfection byproduct issues, which we had in the beginning. I've been very, we started out, we had a water treated water, not a grand thing. And I'm not allowed to be part of this board. Because of the knowledge that I have from maintaining these public utilities. I was sent an email, this board was formed, asking who was going to be our representative of this board. And I responded back and said that that would be me. That was followed up by an email to let me know that all water customers were not to be included and that I was not eligible to be a part of it. So, and I feel that's, basically the key problem because we have run our utility from the time I have been mayor for 10 years. We built public sewer. Public sewer has been up and running, and we are currently building a dumping station, waste receiving station. We're already taking some. We did that 100% ourselves. Okay, we got the funding, we built it, everything. The only help that we received from the county was the county did help with some community development block grant funding for our low and moderate income people to get connected to the sanitary sewer. The dumping station, the whole idea behind that is there's a need completely surrounding us. And that would be extra revenue so that we could keep that public utility in good standing. And it hasn't been that without problems and hiccups and issues and things that needed to be fixed. But fortunately, we have been able to stay on top of it. Right now, today, everything is working perfectly, which it was a rough winter with the sub-zero stuff. No, this is the sewer.
Okay.
Okay. So what I'm telling you is, yeah, we're a little less Farmington, but because we have such a limited amount of resources in both manpower and money, that we have to make every dime count. And we do, and we're good at it, because even up against being used and abused by entities that are much larger than us, and I have years of documentation to back up my story, okay, we're still kicking. I mean, there's people that think we shouldn't exist. There's people that think we should give everything to the county. And frankly, over my dead body, is that going to happen? Because no one cares about local more than local. And the way we run that sewer plant proves it. Okay? All we are is county. And like I said, it's not been a good experience. And I have ample documentation. I mean, we bought water that was about at the point of sale that we got notices about disinfection byproduct issues that we had to put out public notices and we had to put it on our CCR. And I mean, and that's just the tip of the iceberg of what we have experienced. Okay. And so my whole point is, I think I know way more about water than the average bear. I know a lot of hands-on stuff because I've been dealing with it since day one. It's everyday occurrence. And bigger is not better. We already paid too much.
Reducing both water rates help your community. But you have to reduce both water rates.
That's not going to change the quality. And I really don't see reduced rates on the horizon because the water quality issue is being resolved by bringing some more water that at the end of the day, I don't think is going to help West Farmington because West Farmington's at the end of the line. I have an agenda. My agenda is clean, safe, and affordable drinking water for my community. But basically, I wanted to let you know that I'm not allowed to be a member of this. With my experience, and I have the email to prove it. Okay, I just wanted to make it clear, you know, I mean, okay, well, I'm just, Well, that's fine, that's fine. I will do that, but this is supposed to be a water board? You know, I know it's not a decision. Okay,
We'll leave it there.
okay. They haven't heard the last. I'm retiring on May 1st, and my two savings, clean savings, will drink water.
I gotta ask, is everybody coming from staying? So,
The thing is actually saying that
Okay,
before hearing watch.
okay, you need me, I'll stay. I don't think so. Gary, did you want to go over the rates?
Gary Newbrow, sanitary engineer. I think everybody already got the handout for the water rate table, and I think everybody studied it pretty good. What we can see here is that we just have so much variance in the rate view across the different communities. You can see that inside the cities, yes, they do have the lowest rates there. Outside once you get to the satellite systems, Trumbull County is about in the middle there, 1275. Some of the other ones are larger, but the ones that are really high are the outside customers of the cities, especially the right there for Girard. Orange isn't so bad. They're only paying 1160 per thousand for your outside customers. That's not so bad. And the one that really just sticks out to are those outside customers of Girard at that 2112. And the whole purpose of this regionalization is to get rid of this disparity. Everybody in every community would have the same rate is what the primary goal would be of the entire, that means one of the major goals of a regionalization effort. And that's about all I have on that one.
Okay, thank you, Gary. Jason left, and I think he pretty much said. Is there any additional comments or discussion? Yes, sir.
What I've been hearing from the outside until this evening, now hearing this evening, that people mention inside rates. Like it's a bad thing for the citizens of those communities. And I think in the talk of regionalization and in the talk of outlying townships receiving water at rates that they deem fair and whatnot, nobody's taking into effect the legacy costs of these cities and those inside rates and the rates that historic and legacy ones. And while I understand, and I do have empathy for townships that may not have access to good, clean, well water that's dependent, because in the perfect world, that would be the best answer for everybody in the city. But we don't live in a perfect world. And in that case, these municipalities, you brought it up about who's maintaining the line past the meter pit. The issue, at least for the city of Warren, isn't whether Gary's maintaining the lines past the meter pit in Trumbull County or the Champion meter pit right down the road here, which you're familiar with, in front of Kent State campus. The issue is those legacy transmission mains that were bought and paid for by the city of Warren, city of Youngstown, and so on and so forth, and have been maintained and are aged at 75 to 100 years, that those citizens in the city of Warren are still maintaining them. And I think there's a false narrative that the townships are assuming that, well, the citizens of those communities, that's their problem. It's not our problem because we only have to maintain the last mile of the water line. And the issue becomes, if the first problem, where the source is, because the city of Warren is responsible for the water from the ski lake for the treatment of the water from Mosquito Lake to, as the mayor said, to reach all EPA standard and guidelines throughout the 310 miles of our distribution system. And we have those costs. And those costs get passed on, obviously, to the citizens of Warren and anybody outside the city who wants access to that water. But throughout this whole conversation that I followed in the news and in the newspaper, nobody's ever talked about the legacy costs of those cities. And had it not been for the cost, the legacy costs and the infrastructure costs and the ongoing O&M costs of those distribution systems, a lot of townships would just be complaining to the EPA that they have bad well water because there would be no access to those systems. So while I understand what the townships are getting at, there's also economies of scale. And I'm pretty sure you understand, for the meter pit that the city of Warren has here in Champion, we have a deduct meter also. So there's water that comes out, that fills an oversized water tower, and the water that doesn't get used comes back through the deduct meter and gets deducted through the Champion Township meter pit bill. All the water that's coming back into the distribution system in the city of Warren, we've still already treated, distributed, sent it out to Champion, brought it back to Champion, and are still responsible for that water. And while would I want to pay the rates of the township that I hear some of the prices? No, I wouldn't want to pay those rates. So I'd be here complaining the same way that they. But there's also in the big scheme of things, we're talking water, but we're also talking lifestyle. There's people that live in the cities, there's people that live in the suburbs, and there's people that live in the townships. Everybody has made a choice where they want to live, in the city, in a suburb, or in a township. And with that decision of the lifestyle that someone wants to raise their family, the school system that they want to send their kids to, with those decisions come inherent costs. I'm sure property values are much more valuable in buying the township than there are within the city limits of the city of Warren. So those residents probably have to pay for the same 2,000 square foot home in buying a township. They're probably paying more than someone buying a 2,000 square foot home within the inner city proper of the city of Warren. But they still paid that price because they wanted the lifestyle to live, and I'm just using my township. Well, you name the township, they chose to live in that township and have that lifestyle, in which case to raise their family. And with it comes an inherent cost. And one of those inherent costs, unfortunately, are the cost to receive potable municipal water from a city that created that system, in some cases 75 to 100 years ago. So these are lifestyle choices. In most cases, some cases. It's
And I have to agree with everything you said. But I may have disagree. Think. What it costs Warren to treat the water. Plus, surcharge doesn't reflect what we're getting. It doesn't reflect. We are stored in the ground. What it can be, assuming is salaries, et cetera. See in words. Are costs associated with that through the transmission lines of city to Channing Township. We have no problem with sharing those information. But when it appears The rest of the city operation maintenance costs in there also. That's not.
It's not, essentially.
It's in the districts that I just pointed out, and it just, I would like to sit down and show it to you. It doesn't make sense. We don't search. No, I understand.
So, and again, I'm reiterating, with the county getting the bulk rate from the city of Warren, I'm gonna go home tonight. My wife and I are gonna pay a higher rate. And we live inside the city. So when we're talking about prices going down and costs going down, that's a fallacy because no, we pay a higher rate than what is sold to Trumbull County.
Through the master meter.
Excuse me?
Yeah, through the master meter.
Through the master meter, okay? I'm gonna go home tonight and pay more than what Trumbull County pays to the city for water. Because they get a bulk rate discount. My wife and I, for the first 20 consumption, we pay the first year, which I think is, don't quote me, 70 something. I forget the exact, but it's more. So what, and when this conversation has gone on for this past year, a lot of that has been left out in the sense that city of Warren residents, in part, for the most part, pay more than what the city charges Trumbull County. Now, Trumbull County has an issue all unto themselves, because if you're familiar with this, if I build a water line, it costs $1 million, and I have 100 properties on that water line to divvy up the surcharge, the capital costs, the tapping fees, and everything for that water line, they're going to get charged accordingly, because there's 100 properties on that line. If Trumbull County moves that same water line 1 mile, and there's 10 customers on it, it's Econ 101. Somebody is paying that cost for the ability and the availability to tap into a municipal water source. And somebody has to pick up that fee. So or that cost, in which case, if I'm in a township, I want that cost spread out all through Trumbull County and the city of Warren and the city of Youngstown. But if I'm in the city of Warren or the city of Youngstown, those residents sit there and say, why don't we pick it up the cost? Because they wanted water from the city of Warren. And all I'm asking, I guess in that statement, is everybody is looking out for their best interest pocketbook wise. But every once in a while, we have to switch seats and look at it from the other side of the table. And like I said, I wouldn't want to pay these rates. But I would know going into it, if my wife and I moved from the city and we moved into Pickett Township, doesn't matter, that those costs are inherent in the decision to move into that township and live in that house, live in that neighborhood, and raise our kids in that area. It's just, this is just a simple Econ 101 economies of scale issue. But there's 20,000 accounts in the city of Warren that we service, 19,500 on a given basis. We're in discussions with Trumbull County to provide water to West Farmington. How many are 238 accounts?
No, it's 300.
Okay,
Probably 360 or something like that.
360.
In all sincerity, we really don't want it. You know,
Something like, call the PA on that.
oh, I'm going to deal with the
For the city of Warren, for the city of Warren, financially, if we were to sell water directly all the way to West Farmington, it would not even make sense financially. It's a loss leader. Trumbull County with the blueprint for prosperity years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, that line was paid for, I don't know how, grant money, state money, and whatnot, to get water, excuse me,
And by this.
and by West Farmington to get water out there. there's no way that. And I'll just use the city limits, since that's what I know. Whether it's 238 or 360, like the mayor says, whatever the number is. And the mayor may not remember this, but years ago, when all this was happening, I told the mayor, if you have that much water in a standpipe underground, sitting for that long of a distance, to make sure that there was a fire hydrant on this side of the meter pit. Because the first meter was on the other side of the meter pit. By the water quality and the age, it isn't that the water leaving a filtration plant is bad. The water leaving a filtration plant is fine. The problem is it sits in that pipe for an extended period of time.
I'm well versed.
Okay, so you're well versed. So that's what the issue comes.
And I brought this up at every monthly construction progress meeting for the Blueprint project. My disaffection, my concerns, because I knew us being at the line would be an issue. I'm well versed in that. I can hold my own in any conversation with anyone. I guarantee you. So I just, you know.
And I'll keep going back to the economies of scale. And 2 + 2 has been 4 for a long time, and it's going to continue to be 4 in the future. And those numbers don't change. There's inherent cost built in, I think I was talking to, I talked about in 2016, the water department paid $595,000 for chemicals for the water filtration plant for the year. What's that?
I don't think.
In 2025, we paid $1.4 million, not pumping any more water.
How about testing? How did, you know, the testing that you're required to do, the dissipation byproducts and bacteria and all of that? Are you aware that when you get a new water source introduced, that it ramps up the lead and copper testing and inflates the cost of testing that you're responsible for?
That's what, Mary. Yeah. I granted, I'm not doubting your competence in the issue.
I'm not saying, I'm just saying.
What I'm saying is that the economies don't change when it comes to that. We were paying $595,260. We were pumping the same volume of water today as we were in 2016. And our chemical cost was $595,000 to $1.4 million.
Inflation.
Inflation, COVID, pick your poison, whatever the reason. The costs are going up they're not even going up on an annual basis nowadays. They're going up on a semi-annual, not quarterly basis on some materials. And the citizens of Warren, the citizens of Youngstown, Niles, they pay those costs, and everybody receiving the water from those municipalities are paying the cost. The point of this group is everybody in this group feels like the cost of the outlying townships is exorbitant, and they're getting hit with higher fees that they shouldn't be hit with. And everybody in municipalities are saying, okay, but we've invested this money in the past. We've invested money. Sure.
Yeah, MDSE. Okay. I thought that's right. Initially, it was. That was retirement system. For the benefit of people of that facility. And it's been retired. Since the late 70s, early 80s, all the data associated with MDST is collected through their bulk water rate. So as a legacy, I don't hold a whole lot into that argument. It's easy to say, hey, you were the first ones in, you invested all this money, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, you were.
I can't speak for our business.
I understand that. But I also know that the county participates in any improvement costs to your wastewater treatment plant based on the amount of water we use. All I would ask, and this was my frustration when I was executive director. When the bulk rates were handed out, it was just a piece of paper that said, this is what it is. When I asked for documentation, calculations, how did you arrive at this? It was always met as sanitary sources. I asked them, city of Warren. I went through down through the numbers. I see 68,000. I run the line up. You know what it was? The salary of somebody at the call. So what's this? And what it means? Well, the way the city of Warren does it, the departments share in that salary every year. In other words, it's sanitary's responsibility that year, next year remains who it in. But my point being, if I wouldn't have got a look at it, $68,000 rolled into, sewage treatment, water sewage treatment. And it's always been with resistance, into those 8 years. That you also, you should be. I want to see what you're basing it.
And everything may be right about that scenario. The only part that you're leaving out is the city of Warren charges Trumbull County 75%. I think it was.
But we have no, actually, our argument has.
That was just for instance.
Is you're cherry picking the line in the budget, wastewater, which I'm not saying is.
Would you believe that? You call that cherry picking? Would you believe that nobody and then you was receiving for something?
If I was in your position, no. But my point being is, what was the story that you're leaving? Is that $16,000 line item is in the wastewater treatment plant budget? The part that you're leaving out is the city of Warren charges Trumbull County not even 75% of the rate the residents inside the city pay. So Trumbull County, again, gets a lower rate for a service than the city of.
No, you're talking about water. Water, because it was a rate lower than the inside rate, so. Rex, your argument has some validity when you're talking about outside city customers, like up on North. Or out along Elmwood, those places down there, an outside rate. It's not, but it's not the county customers that are being fed in the maximum. I think that's. But that's a more fair assessment.
But one of the things, and I'm sorry, I had to cut you off like a devil. Townships, are you aware that townships by law own utilities?
Yeah, you told me that this morning.
And it's one of those things where 6150, it was made a law for the steel mills. And they're just not here in all. And what there's not so much more, but like everybody has done, is turn around and help get that all of that customers to the townships and the townships that they have further increase. What I believe is going to happen. They're going to pass laws. We do not regionalize now. It's going to be forced on something, and nobody will like.
Join water districts.
No.
But we cannot.
We can't. I mean, which suggests that regionalization,
It's the only way we can go. We have no further choices. I would love to do something like California did. We could very well put in 6 wells. Put our own plan. But we're not to, so we're forced into this situation. I think we talked about holding days today. That's the problem. It's not continuous.
Well, no, I mean, we're talking about individual neighborhoods, I'm talking
Right. And
the village of Lawrencetown is a village, and they created their own water district some years back, I think, right?
And that was because of Virginia. Woodstown was the 25th township. They decided to incorporate so that they could do income taxes on the GM employees and the other plants that ended up building in. So they had a way to pay for it. For a township like us, there's no way. We don't have the, it's pretty hard for somebody like Farmington with $1 general to get enough money to form a system. And again, I explained to you on the township. I believe in the township, our form of government. But it really hurts when the state of Ohio has taken away all of our rights. And they have, before Vienna could incorporate, we could have to get permission from Warren, Gerard, Niles, and maybe even Youngstown. They're pretty close as far as their services into Liberty. How is that fair? It's not.
It is, there's a lot about this that I can see is not fair. It's not fair for the townships to pay what you consider an exorbitant price. It's not fair for the residents of the city of Warren to pay a higher bill so somebody out in Vienna can get a cheaper water rate. I agree. So they can live out in the country. Let's all be honest. Live out in Vienna and have all the beauties of living in a town, outlying township, and not in the inner city where there is crime and there's congestion and there's a bunch of other stuff. Okay. Sometimes there is. Okay. And that goes back to my previous statement about everybody making a choice. And again, if my wife and I moved out to Vienna tomorrow, it would be a choice. And with that choice, for that matter, even the road I live on, since it's relatively new in the city of New York, I have to pay a $500 a month assessment because there was a brand new water line put in 20-some years ago. And I'm living in a house that has to pay that assessment. And what I'm saying is, I don't know how Trumbull County does it with the water lines in Vienna. I don't know if each house that taps into service has to pay a $500 assessment for the tapping and whatnot, and do it the next 20 years or 25 years. Like, so to this whole story, there's a lot that's not fair all the way around. But to think that the answer is going to be regionalization and the populations of the city of Warren and Youngstown and Niles are going to pay a higher rate to live in the Warren City, Niles, and Youngstown. So everybody that moved out to the suburbs and the country for their privacy and their life and their lifestyle choices can get a lower water rate. Well, if you look at it from a citizen of Warren perspective, it doesn't really sound like a good deal. That's all I'm saying. And I don't think your deal's a good deal either. But one way or another, like, I forget the gentleman's name, Jason, what he said is, Do I think this regionalization is going to go anywhere? Not at all. Because you don't have water systems that are in distress like Toledo was in distress. And I'm just being honest to the crowd here. That happened because Toledo was desperate. They were in distress. They were under violation by the state of Ohio EPA. And the only way they could find the funds to pay for everything that needed to be done without bankrupting the citizens of Toledo was to spread the system, regionalize, and collect as much revenue as they could pay for it. MPSD isn't in that situation. I know for a fact the city of Warren isn't in that situation. And like I said, and I'll reiterate this to our own more and more. For years, Champion Township has been getting water from the city of Warren. I think we have somebody here who practically set that up in the past, okay? And they've been getting it, at least at the master meter pit, from a reduced price. For years, the village of Lordstown would be a cornfield, but not for the city of Warren supplying water to General Motors in the 1960s. At a reduced rate. And then someone wised up in the village of Lordstown, I don't know, about 20 years ago, and they created a village so they could create their own water district to buy water at bulk rate from the city of Warren and screw over every industry that shows up in the village of Lordstown with higher fees and a surcharge.
Actually, it was 45, 50 years ago. Yes.
Okay, there you go. But again, that would, and even today, the city of Warren provides water to the village of Lordstown for the Foxconn facility, for the first energy center, and now for the second. The city of Warren is providing water to $3.5 billion worth of industry in the village of Lordstown, with nothing else attached to it, tax revenue wise, anything else. Village of Lordstown gets the benefit from that by this, because of the city of Warren and the infrastructure that was put in place years ago. Everybody at the table's got an argument. Everybody, in the simplest term, has, well, no, I won't say everybody because I don't have it. Because the rates for the citizens of Warren are my responsibility. My responsibility isn't to buy a township or an outlying township. I feel bad for Gary in a lot of ways. Never told him this because Trumbull County is constantly, tell me if I'm lying, getting approached by the state of Ohio and asking, can you run a water? Can you run a water? Yep, no, maybe.
That Blueprint Water project was completely requested by the EPA. And
Right.
Then they give me 75% for the
Okay.
forgiveness to build and 0% on the rest of it.
So my point being is Gary and Trumbull County has been catching grief from their Shirley 12 years now. Because the state wanted to line it out to West Farmington.
Right.
It was never going to be economically feasible. It's the reason why I told her, have a fire hydrant on this side of the water pit. So Trumbull County would be responsible for flushing that water, because if it's on the other side, you're gonna have EPP problems. And you're gonna have to flush hydrants.
Well, no, Frank, we do sample that water and I think it's pretty good. It's all within our agreement of,
I agree.
our,
No, I'm not saying,
yeah.
I'm saying Trumbull County was put in a position
Yeah.
on that issue.
Yeah.
75% forgiveness of that water line means nothing to nobody at Trumbull County Sanitary Engineers. All 75% forgiveness of that water line means is it gives them 75% of grief of running a water line from Newton Falls all the way to West Farmington, and then getting complaints that the water is not of good quality, because once it goes through that meter pit, whether it's 238, and I'm not 60 houses, because we all know there's no industry in West Farmington. The water does not move. And if you look at any pond in Vienna Township or Champion Township or any other township, if the water is not moving in that pond, what happens to that pump?
Right, but that water moves and it's down 300 some customers. We do a hell of a lot of flushing to deliver that water to quality that we do.
That's
Our
my problem.
our biggest problem is it's coming out of Newton Falls, where that water quality right from the source is not very good. And all they have is chlorine treatment there, they don't have chlorines. So it doesn't keep its finish.
I understand that, and I'm actually trying to come to your defense here,
Yeah,
in the sense that all that water that you're talking about flushing, you've
Yeah.
already bought from Newton Falls.
yeah,
Now you're putting it in a ditch somewhere,
Yeah.
so West Farmington can get quality water going
Yeah.
to master meter.
I don't understand any of that.
Nobody in West Farmington cares about how much Trumbull County has to flush hydrants in order for the water quality to be stable when it passes through the meter pit.
Right,
I can tell you right now, in the city of Warren, the way the infrastructure was built back in the 50s, everything was built to flow through the entire city of Warren to the steel mills on the west side. Right now, tonight, I have 9 automatic flushers that are going to turn on at 11 o'clock at night on fire hydrants throughout the city of Warren and the distribution system. And I have to flush water in a ditch at 300 gallons a minute for 3 hours for each flushing. That's water we pay for, treat it, we're spending electricity to push it out there, and we're having to put it down the drain because of an aging infrastructure. So when everybody's talking about water rates, there's a lot of inside bump, so to speak, that goes into those rates that the general public does not understand. For that water to get out to Miami Township, there's a inherent cost that goes with it, that Gary, or whoever you get it from, they have a cost built into that. And they're flushing lines before it gets to Miami Township. So the water's of good quality and EPA standard.
So, thank you for being here. I was really to be here, yeah, the city. of Warren. I have to say, hey, I'm disappointed. in People that didn't show up. I mean, after all, this was a meeting in June. Didn't see anything being solved here. Just talk. Talking. It's further discussion and hopefully we'll write some sort of resolution. I agree with the whole one. You're not gonna see the resolution. I agree. I've talked to people prior to the meeting. I just don't see it. In Trumbull County, with the political climate, all the issues, we don't have any politicians here represented during the matter. And I think that is shameful. I would tell that to them. I think that is shameful. Yes, I appreciate the comments. I appreciate your representation.
And also, if I may, Warren's an open book. If anybody ever wants to call me, stop by the office. I have no problem going over the cost of the city of Warren and what's entailed with that. Because I'm confident of where our numbers at. And if you look on this sheet, it's very easy to see where Warren's rates are in comparison to everybody else on this sheet. So, Warren has nothing to hide. Speak to anybody at any time and wants to have a conversation. And we can go from there.
I've always had different issues. It's near, right? The different divisions and stuff. CD one. Again, thank you for your attendance. Yes, I do. If I could entertain a motion to adjourn. Drive.